Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something that might sound a little counterintuitive at first. How rigorous hardcore math and economics can actually save our ecosystems. You know, we usually think of environmentalism and business as being totally at odds, like they're just completely opposed to each other. But today, we are going to crunch the numbers and see exactly how economics can literally dictate the survival of a forest. Okay, let's jump right in.
So, this striking statement comes straight from the Central University of Tamil Nadu syllabus, and it hits the nail right on the head regarding the core global crisis we face today. I mean, for the past 50 years, we've watched this play out. Economies boom, and our forests and rivers end up paying the price. But if we want to chart a sustainable path forward, we can't just rely on good intentions, right? We need a highly systematic approach.
And that is exactly where environmental economics comes in. To fix this crisis, we need specialists trained in this specific field to actually map out sustainable development paths. It's all about providing a rock-solid economic rationale for why we should protect nature in the first place. Basically, we have to learn to speak the language of business and policy if we want to stop resource overexploitation. Now, solving these massive problems requires a seriously heavy toolkit. We're not just talking about high-level feel-good theory here. Looking at this core curriculum, students have to master advanced micro and macroeconomics, intense statistical methods, and even game theory. They're learning to apply complex econometric software to real-life environmental systems. I mean, it is hardcore math literally deployed for the planet's benefit.
All right, let's see what this intensive training looks like in practice with Section 1, Case Study, Forest Resources.
So forests are incredibly complex, productive capital assets. They're highly multifunctional. Yes, obviously they provide commercial timber, but they also regulate our air quality, filter our drinking water, hold genetic resources, and offer wildlife habitats. But here is the economic catch. They occupy incredibly valuable land, which creates a massive opportunity cost, especially when you factor in the really long time lags between planting a tiny seedling and finally harvesting a mature tree.
To figure out how to manage all of this, economists first map out physical growth. Notice this distinct S shape here. It starts off kind of slow, accelerates really rapidly during the tree's prime growing years, and then slowly tapers off as the whole forest matures. And, interestingly enough, this looks a whole lot like the logistic growth curves biologists use to model fish populations.
Digging just a bit deeper into the biology, we track two main metrics: current annual increment, which is just the marginal year-by-year growth, and mean annual increment, which is the average. But unlike a fishery, where you can continuously just scoop out the new growth every season, forestry is pretty much all or nothing. You usually have to chop down the entire stand of trees at once.
And that unique physical reality brings us to Section 2, the math of the harvest. Let's see how an environmental economist actually tackles this. So here's a seemingly simple question that actually requires intense calculus to answer. What is the optimal age to harvest? Do you cut them down when the trees are growing the fastest, or maybe when they hit the highest average wood volume? Well, just looking at the physical growth curves isn't going to cut it. Physical growth completely ignores the financial realities. We have to account for the costs of harvesting, the costs of replanting, and of course the ever-changing market price of the timber itself.
We start figuring this out with the Fisher model. This calculates the maximum present value of the land for just one single plant and harvest rotation. It essentially weighs the volume of the wood against the planting costs and the market price, all discounted back to today's value. So it tells a landowner exactly when to cut their trees to maximize profit for that one single crop.
It seems incredibly straightforward, right? But if you take a closer look at the economic interpretation, it reveals a glaring problem. a major missing clue. By focusing entirely on maximizing the profit of this current batch of trees, the Fisher rule completely forgets about tomorrow.
The crucial point here is that land has an ongoing opportunity cost. The plot twist is that once you cut down the current trees, the land doesn't just vanish into thin air. You can plant more. The Fausman rule expertly factors this in by assuming an infinite number of harvest rotations. It tells us that delaying a harvest today doesn't just mean waiting for today's trees to grow, it also means actively delaying the start of the next generation of trees and the generation after that forever. So the Fausman formula does the heavy lifting on these infinite sequences. It proves that because of the user cost, the opportunity cost of waiting, the optimal harvest age is actually altered by all those future income streams. It mathematically penalizes you for delaying future rotations, which means the Fausman model generally tells us to harvest the trees a bit earlier than that single rotation Fisher model suggested.
But wait, forests do way more than just produce timber, right? Let's move to Section 3, Valuing the Invisible Amenities.
This is where the Hartman multiple use model comes into play. It introduces a brilliant new variable, an. This represents the invisible amenity values of a living forest at a specific age. We are talking about calculating the literal actual dollar value of wildlife habitats, water purification, and aesthetic beauty, and then plugging that number right into the formula.
By doing this, the Hartman model fundamentally shifts the calculus. It maximizes the overall asset value of the land, ensuring that both the cut wood and the living, breathing services of the standing trees are treated as highly valuable economic goods. Under the Hartman rule, delaying a harvest gives you two distinct, simultaneous benefits. You get the increased timber growth to sell later, and you get the continuous flow of those invisible environmental amenities right now. You only swing the axe when the financial gain of cutting completely outweighs both the future wood growth and the ongoing value of keeping the habitat alive.
So, how does this intense theory actually change decision-making out in the real world? Let's look at Section 4, Calculating a Sustainable Future.
The math gives us incredibly specific, real-world directives. For example, if the unseen amenities get more valuable as the forest ages, say it's an old-growth forest that supports rare wildlife and massive carbon sequestration, the math literally dictates that we must wait significantly longer to cut down those trees. Conversely, if a forest's main amenity is providing forage for animals that actually thrive in younger, sparser woods, the model might tell us to harvest sooner. The economics perfectly tailors the human action to the biological reality of that specific forest.
This entire case study really proves why that rigorous syllabus matters so much. By walking through these steps, we see that pricing in short-run amenity services doesn't just halt the economy. It can actually mathematically justify higher sustainable average harvest levels in the long run. Valuing nature doesn't destroy the timber business, it transforms it into a multi-use asset managed for maximum sustainable yield. We move from blind extraction to calculated, intelligent preservation. Now that you've seen the rigorous math behind deciding the fate of a single stand of trees, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Think about the hidden value of the nature right around you. The air you breathe, the water filtration, the aesthetic joy of walking through your local park. How do we put a price on that to ensure it survives the relentless pressures of economic growth? Because as we've learned today, if we don't calculate its value, we might just lose it forever. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the true value of the world around you.